The restaurant was the kind only the wealthiest could afford. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting golden light over the polished floors. The scent of gourmet dishes filled the air as waiters in crisp suits carried plates worth more than a homeless man's entire month. Ethan Carter, a self-made billionaire, sat at his reserved table near the window, overlooking the city skyline. He was used to luxury. Success had shaped his life, and he rarely thought about anything else. A waiter placed a perfectly arranged plate of steak in front of him. Ethan barely noticed. He was engrossed in his phone, scanning through emails, unaware of the small figure outside watching him. Through the large glass window, a boy no older than 10 stood, his face smeared with dirt, his clothes nothing more than torn rags. His eyes locked onto the plate before Ethan, hunger and desperation evident in his gaze. Ethan lifted his fork and knife, ready to take the first bite, when suddenly, "Don't eat that," a voice cried out. The restaurant fell silent. Heads turned. Eyes widened. Ethan froze, fork in mid-air, searching for the source of the outburst. It was the boy. He had stepped inside, breathless, his chest rising and falling rapidly. His small hands trembled at his sides, but his gaze was firm, locked onto Ethan. The manager stormed over, his face red with anger. "Get out of here, kid. You can't be in here." "Please, sir," the boy pleaded, his voice desperate. "Don't let him eat that. He stopped, swallowing hard. His lips quivered. He seemed terrified to finish his sentence. Ethan, intrigued and oddly unsettled, raised a hand, signaling for the manager to stop. "Why?" Ethan asked, his voice calm but firm. "Why shouldn't I eat this?" Tears welled in the boy's eyes. He hesitated before speaking, his voice barely a whisper. "Because, that food is poisoned." A gasp rippled through the restaurant. The staff exchanged bewildered glances. Ethan narrowed his eyes, studying the boy. "How do you know that?" The boy bit his lip. His body shivered slightly as if remembering something terrible. "Because my mother used to work in this restaurant, until she found out something she wasn't supposed to." Silence. A stillness so heavy it felt suffocating. Ethan set his utensils down carefully. "Go on," he urged. The boy took a deep breath. "She found out that some of the food here wasn't safe. The chef, he does things to certain meals for important people. She heard him talking about it, and when she confronted him, she never came home again." His voice cracked on the last words. A cold chill ran through Ethan's spine. His mind raced. Could this be a desperate child making up stories? But the raw fear in his eyes, the way his voice trembled with pain, it was real. The manager's face paled. "That's ridiculous. Get out before I call security." Ethan ignored him. Instead, he turned to the waiter. "Bring me another plate. A different meal." The waiter hesitated. "Sir." "Now," Ethan commanded, his voice leaving no room for argument. Minutes later, a different dish arrived. Ethan motioned to the manager. "You eat the steak," he said coolly. The manager stammered, his face glistening with sweat. That's absurd." Ethan leaned forward. "Eat it. Or should I assume the boy is telling the truth?" The restaurant watched in stunned silence. The manager's throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. He glanced at the plate, then at the boy, then at Ethan. And then, he bolted. He turned and ran out of the restaurant, shoving past waiters as he disappeared through the back exit. A murmur spread through the room. Ethan exhaled, setting down his napkin. He turned to the boy, his expression unreadable. "What's your name?" "Liam," the boy answered softly. Ethan nodded. "Come with me, Liam." He stood, pulling out his wallet, leaving enough cash to cover every meal in the restaurant. He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder and led him outside. "Where do you live?" Ethan asked. "I don't," Liam said, looking down. "Not anymore." Something inside Ethan cracked. He had spent years chasing wealth, power, luxury, but at that moment, none of it mattered. "You do now," he said. And with those words, he changed Liam's life forever. In the weeks that followed, the restaurant was investigated. It turned out that Liam's mother had indeed worked there. And she had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The manager was arrested. The chef confessed to tampering with food. Justice was served. But more importantly, Liam found a home. Not just a house, not just food on his plate, but a family. Ethan Carter, the billionaire who once cared only for success, became the father the boy never had. And in doing so, he found something money could never buy, the joy of changing a life. Because sometimes, the smallest voice can hold the greatest truth. And sometimes, the richest man is the one who gives the most away.